So you've just come off a world tour, and we've been travelling around promoting stuff in LA and all over the place. So this is our first opportunity we've grabbed to come to Reykjavik to talk to you about the retrospectively about your Composer Toolkit, which is your second library with Spitfire.
Yeah.
What is the thinking behind it?
Thinking behind this is to kind of share my writing tools, basically, which is also my sound, because those are, those are the same thing, pretty much. I wanted to create a tool which is equally inspiring as a songwriting tool. Like, you touch it and you feel like writing, basically. You feel inspired. Equally an inspiring tool, but also a production tool. I think when you're writing stuff, you're also doing the end result. It's like when I record a demo, I'm already trying to work in the sound of the final result. So those should be interconnected. Those should be the same thing, really. You shouldn't have to change the sound afterwards to something else. So I tried to create something inspiring, that inspires new melodies and that inspires new ways of thinking, but also which can stay in the mix as a nice production sound.
And it was interesting working with you. I think of all the artists we've worked with, you were really proactive on the end result. So it wasn't just the recordings, it was how they were implemented and presented.
Yeah, I was extremely annoying to Stan when when you were making the engine and all the presets. I insisted that I would myself personally go through every single preset, and I adjusted like the ADSR by like a tiny bit and saved it again. I'm extremely concerned about like that when people would click a preset or click a sound and opening an instrument, that they would instantly get what I had in mind from the very beginning and not have to tune it too much to get what I wanted them to get. Because I think, if you have an idea and you only deliver half of that idea, people are just going to get lost. They're not going to finish that idea on their own. Things get just a bit messy. I just wanted it to be a very clear sign that we're sending people a very clear idea.
Now, it contains a collection of your kind of favourite synths and your real favourite synth sounds that you've kind of evolved over the years. And there was, I think, points where you're a bit nervous about letting those go.
Yeah, it's always hard to give away your secrets in a way. A lot of these sounds are stuff that I developed over quite a few years, and I spent all my energy and time developing my own sound. But also, they are sounds that I have been using for a while, and if people really want to copy them, they can. There's no magic, there's no big secret behind there. But also, I was speaking to my friend about this at some point, and he said to me, the best way to advance, force yourself to find new ways of making music and find new sounds is to give away what you already have. Mm-hmm. If you give that to everyone else, you're forced to find something new. And I'm in a period of my life where I really feel like I need to discover something new. I feel like my next record needs to be different from the last one. So it was perfect timing actually for me to just give away all the secrets of the last ones and be able to just start from scratch. So actually, interestingly enough, I'm not using those synth sounds in the library that I made because I'm past that. I'm going on new ventures now.
But there is something that is very useful for you, and you are in the unique position of having a piano at the back of your room, but also one that you can use within, and that is very much the centerpiece, is it not?
Yeah, the piano is something that I do use, and this piano is definitely the centerpiece of my studio. It's the centerpiece of my compositional process. So be able to start here and improvise with it and write something and then go in there and program it in as MIDI or record it as MIDI. I even got these sensors. I can actually record the MIDI from here. And I use the samples that actually are this piano on the computer. It's wonderful. So usually when I start working on a demo, I play here because this is much more inspiring than any sample library you could ever make. Just to play an actual piano. It's, but then when I have an idea down, I record MIDI for it or just draw in the MIDI for it and load the samples of this piano. And then I have this freedom to change a note here and there, you know, really work on the details of it and compile everything else on top of it, the strings and the synths and everything. And then when I'm happy, I just go back here and actually record it. But the sound has never changed during that process. It's always the same character. It's the same piano through the whole process, which is an incredible luxury that I don't think many people have.
And you have a intimate relationship with this piano, not just compositionally, but also I imagine there's an evolution of the way that in which you've created a sound with the piano. Do you want to go back to the beginning of where you found the piano and what you were looking for in a piano? And
yeah, I was looking to buy a grand piano, and I had actually traveled around Europe, went to piano factories, went to, you know, looking for something that I just really connected with. And then I found this one. It's this old retired piano technician in Iceland who is also blind, by the way, who as a hobby had found this Bechstein from 1903. It's built, and I think it came to Iceland during the Second World War, maybe with the military. We don't really know how it got here. And then it was in some bar for like 30, 40 years, just sitting there. And then I think in the end it came from an estate, someone's estate. And it hadn't, you know, it was completely destroyed. It was rusty, all the strings were broken. So this retired old man, sweet man, actually made it his project to restore it completely. So he changed all the strings, he changed all the felt, changed the hammers, changed the keys. So all the mechanics are actually new-ish, and but you still have the old wood from the original. And yeah, as soon as I sat down and started playing it, you know, I just realized. Well, first of all, I realized this piano is in no means perfect. It has a lot of faults to it. There's like an area here that I always get annoyed by it, but there was a character to it that I just fell in love with. It's like, you know, it's loving someone with their faults. You know?
yeah, but it doesn't stop there, because you've kind of customized it further, have you not?
Yeah, I found this piano in Berlin. When I was looking for a piano, I found a baby grand which had a built-in rehearsal felt, which usually only uprights do. And I had been recording with felt since my first album. Actually, I recorded half of it just with the felt on, basically just the rehearsal pedal down to make it quiet. And I always loved that sound. But I had never seen it, and I still haven't seen it again, done with a grand piano. And I found this baby grand in a store in Berlin, and it actually had like a little button and put felt on a grand. I didn't actually think that was physically possible, just with how do you place it in there. I considered buying that one, but then didn't. Niels Fram actually bought it. But I figured out a way to do it myself with some gaffer tape and some material. So I got a bunch of like different styles of materials, and I opened the piano up and put these between the hammers and the strings to create this dampening effect. And that really brought out the magic in this piano. I think that's what perfected it for me.
And I mean, the felt has a dampening effect on the top end of the note itself, but you often in your processing boost the top end because it adds a totally new element, which is almost percussive.
It's the percussive element of the hammer hitting this material. So it depends on what material you got. If you got a slightly hard material like this one, you get this when you hit it, which you don't get from the hammer just hitting directly on the string. And then what it does, I think the main thing about it is that it softens the attack. And by softening the attack, you're also relatively lengthening the sustain.
Yeah.
So it's almost like natural compression.
Yep.
And if you just put the mics really close You get the whole length of the sustain. You get the attack of the hammer hitting the felt. That creates this sound that I've been working with.
And I believe the Spitfire team descended on your studio for a week to actually do the sampling, but you were very much involved in the setup. And do you want to talk us through the mics you use and then some outboard that the signal path?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think I believe we set it up with these two KM84s from Neumann as the main microphones, and we had them really close to pick up the percussion elements of the felt and all the little details of the piano. You hear the creaks of the hammers and the fingers touching the keyboard. And these mics are actually, they have a really nice story of them. I got them from the estate of the owner of the Hansa Studios in Berlin, Peter. They actually have his name written on the microphone, so I like to romanticize about the idea that they may have been used on some old David Bowie records or something, which is really nice. Then we had a pair of C12s, the old original version of the C12. I think we had them a little bit further away, so they're a bit more natural. And then we had a pair of Coles 4088. We placed them under the piano, so that's more picking up just the boominess and the fatness of the piano. So we then did two things. We had one, first of all, just the dry mic signals which you can use on the instruments, and then we did one mix signal, which is my curated mix, like the way I would usually run this through my outboard. It goes through the 1178 Ure compressor. So we're actually compressing each individual note, which gives you this added sustain to everything. And then it goes through my Pultec EQs, adding some of the high end to get the crispiness of the hammer hitting the felt, and also some low end just to get it a bit more boomy and nice. And then on a separate signal path, so you can actually control it in the plugin, we have a sound that I use quite a lot to create ambience around the piano, which we run the piano through my EMT 240 plate reverb, an actual physical version of it. And then what I do is that I run from the plate through the space echoes and have only the tape sound, so just a fully wet signal. Mm-hmm. So you're making wobbliness and echoes to the already wet plate sound, which create this wonderful. You have to filter it afterwards and do lots of things with it to make it fit, but it creates this really nice ambience, which is based on every note that you press on the piano, and it just fills up. It kind of creates an environment around the piano a little bit. Something I use quite a lot. So you actually have that sound also on a slider.
And I believe that this mix chain that you set up presented some quite interesting challenges to the Spitfire team, because it's a hot signal, isn't it? I mean, you're gaining.
Yeah, well, it's a very quiet piano because we have very thick felt there, and the whole idea of recording it this quiet, apart from just the sound, is also to catch all the, there's extra sounds, in the hammers. When the hammer releases, you have the sound and pedals and creaks and stuff, and I wanted to catch all of that, and that's part of the magic of recording such quiet. But then the challenge for it, thankfully I didn't have to stay here. You brought someone to actually press the key of the piano, but I heard that there were some big challenges with noise, because it's already sensitive while recording normally, but when you record samples it's even more sensitive. And I believe Stan was for 3 days laying on the floor because the chair he was sitting on by the computer was making noise. So it was probably a very meditative and nice process, just for 3 days laying on the floor listening to one note at a time on my grand piano.
Fantastic. And I think just sitting still for that kind of length of time is
I do not envy Oliver, whose job it was to press the keys. And you have to record each note for, I don't know what you did, 25 seconds probably, because the sustain in this piano is actually surprisingly long. It goes on for 20, 25 seconds. And then plus we have we were recording the reverb signal and the echo signal at the same time as well, which extends the signal even more. So if there was a helicopter flying by or a ship going in the harbor here, you have to do that note again, of course. Or if Stan, lying on the floor, accidentally breathes, he forgets to hold his breath, then also you have to do it all again. But I think, some of these sounds are in there, and in the samples you can sometimes hear, like, the shirt or some clothes, and I think that is part of the magic, that it's part of what tells you there's a human behind those samples, and what makes them, makes them human, basically.
Yeah, we don't do these things because they're easy, but they're really, I think you're happy with this. I think it's worth the effort.
I'm very happy with this sample library, yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Olafur.
Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant.